Hi, everybody. Sorry, it was too loud. Have you had the chance to fill the questionnaires? Everything was fine? Did you need more time? Catarina is asking. Well, we need to go ahead because we are a little bit behind, but I'm sure we can pick it up. So now I will pass the word to the moderator. Yes, please. Sim, no mic. Mas queres que eu te guarde? Posso deixar aqui? Queres que eu guarde? Vou o telemóvel ali. É? Está bem? Tenho. Só tenho que sentar mais para cá.
A Catarina é a penúltima, tá?
Sim. Pode ficar com o Michel.
Yeah, you can do that.
Sorry.
What was on this side?
Is it okay? Oh, of course.
Tudo? So good afternoon to you all. It's very nice to be here with you. I'm Paula Bernardo, Director of Parliamentary Support. I will hope to have your attention, we all have hope to have your attention to IP networks, the next panel. I would like to thank you for the answers you gave to the questionnaires. It's always very helpful and important to see the reality of your work. I would like you all to be very participative, ask all the questions you want, and don't hesitate to interrupt us if you want some clarifications. We are here for you. We are here to solve all the questions and all the doubts you have about IP networks. I'm not an expert, I'm a user like you, and so I'll profit to learn a little bit more about these networks. So, do not take more time, I will give the floor to Michel Vandeborne.
It's on, okay. Thanks very much. Always a bit difficult to start after such a nice lunch, but I'll try my best to entertain you for the few minutes that I have now. So networks. Networks is actually what we are about, of course. We each have our own networks, and that's our daily life is shaped by those networks. And I'm just going to take you through my network, my experience I have, and maybe you'll find it interesting. And if you have any questions, of course, you can always interrupt me. See if this works. I'm going to start at home in my parliament, the Belgian Senate, just to give you an idea of our structure and where I am as a national parliament representative. Of course, as in all parliaments, the Secretary General, and then we have 6 directorates in our parliament. The legislative department is where I am. I am integrated in the EU department. Legislative department is the plenary sessions committees and the EU department and the international relations department. The next one, the legal department, I'm just mentioning it because ECPRD is integrated in the legal department in the Senate, so not in the international relations department. And then the finance and HR department, just for your info, you probably know that the Belgian Senate is the formal employer of Kalin, the information officer. Yes. But of course, all parliaments are participating in his funding. More focused on the European Affairs Department. We are at well, normally, we should be 4 people. We are 2 people now, and we have, in view of our coming presidency, 1 extra person supporting us, Celeste there. But she is sadly only temporarily with us for the presidency. So the first person, my colleague, Yuna, some of you may know her. She's responsible for the Speakers Conference, European Affairs Committee, and COSAC, which is linked to that, and the Democracy Support Unit, which is new, but she's also taking care of that. And then on the other side is my part of the job. As NPR, I'm also the IPEX correspondent and in charge of subsidiarity scrutiny in the Parliament. So I'm a bit biased in this public, but I'll stick to the NPR part. Just putting this down here. I'm already ahead of this. Let's see. The members have, both members have, of course, their specific tasks, but we are also each other's backup necessary. If you only have 2 people, I mean, what are you going to do if one isn't available? Just seeing if I didn't get anything okay. I'll just focus a bit on my part as an NPR. I must say I'm a pretty bad example of an NPR because I am in Brussels. I have 2 offices in Brussels, one in my home parliament in the Senate and one in the European Parliament. As I'm also the IPEX correspondent and in charge of subsidiarity scrutiny, which is a big part of my task in the Senate, there isn't always much time I can spend in the European Parliament. Sometimes it's a blessing for other colleagues that they are away from their parliament in Brussels and exclusively can spend their time focusing on their NPR tasks. I have to divide myself up into 3 or 4 parts. But I do get to get to the European Parliament and meet the colleagues, of course. Subsidiarity scrutiny, one specific thing about that for the Belgian Senate. As you may know, in Belgium, our constitutional framework is a bit complicated. We have the federal level and the regional level, and both have also in European affairs exclusive competences, meaning that the federal level isn't competent for some policy fields. Regional parliaments are, but they don't have an direct access to the NPR network, for example, or IPEX. So the Senate serves as the intermediary for all the regional parliaments for them to get access to the European level. And that's why we as a Senate regularly also put political dialogue files or reasoned opinions, if there are any, on the IPEX website in the name of the Senate, but for the regional parliaments. Also as an NPR, I work for the regional parliaments also, So all information I get through the network is also going to the regional parliaments. And they participate also in some conferences as long as it is touching their own competencies, which makes it a bit of an intra-Belgian interparliamentary conference on its own, which takes some time to coordinate and get some results sometimes. Another consequence of the constitutional build-up of our country is that the Senate has reduced competencies, very limited ones actually. So our involvement in the actual subsidiarity scrutiny is, compared to other parliaments, pretty limited. But the difference is, as I said, made up a bit by the implication of the regional parliaments. So we cover, together, Senate and regional parliaments, we cover pretty much everything that, together with the House, then every competences, European competences, where national parliaments normally should be active on. That's going nice. So now, again, focusing even more on the national parliament representative job. I'm a bit too, yes, that's better. The internal network within the Senate, as an NPR, I have mostly most contacts with the different committees, committee secretariats, and with myself as IPEX correspondent. So if I wouldn't do the same job, I would have a lot of contact anyway with the one who would be IPEX correspondent. In the second row, I would say, is the International Relations Department. As you can see, they deal with everything that is non-EU, all inter-parliamentary relations outside European Union. There is the Parliamentary Assembly for the Union of the Mediterranean, which is a bit oddly placed maybe, but I mean, that's what it is. Next one is communication, which has gained in importance the last years. Communication through websites, as was said earlier, Twitter accounts, Facebook accounts, YouTube channels, and so on. This is gaining much in importance. So also their ties are pretty good and intensifying, actually. So maybe within a few years, you will see communication even in bigger letters there. And then the last one, a few other contacts we regularly have. Speaker's office, of course, the protocol department, and ECPRD. As said before, it isn't in my own service, the legislative service. We have contacts with them, but not as much. And maybe that's also an explanation for what Colin was talking about, where we saw the IPEX website with the research papers, which are practically non-existent in the IPEX website. There are a lot of them on the ECPRD, so probably there is a preference for the ECPRD network to be used for that kind of thing, as they have been since, I mean, I don't know how many years they are there. IPEX being the new kid in town, suffering probably a bit from that kind of presence already there in that field. And then externally, on the external side, outside the Senate, what are the main contacts, the main networks? Of course, first the National Parliament representative network in the European Parliament itself. Just a small observation there, it would be nice to have also not only representatives of national parliaments of EU member countries, but also of the candidate countries and even others. We have a Norwegian representative in our group. The British are halfway there, as they always are, halfway in, half out. But they're still there. But it would be nice to have an even bigger network there. I think it would be very interesting for us also. Of course, the European Parliament, the institution hosting us, and of course the NPR of the House, my direct colleague within the Belgian Parliament. Then a bit on the second level, I'd say the 6 Belgian regional parliament representatives. They form their own network together with, well, myself actually from the Senate. So we form our own regional network within Belgium, and they get constant info as I would give to my committee colleagues, for example. The EU institutions, of course, also, so outside the EP, mainly the European Commission, in a lesser degree, the European Council or other European institutions. And then lastly, I mean, I'm struggling to read my own PowerPoint here. Do I get it right? What is, yes, oh God. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Perm Rep, the Belgian Perm Rep, ties aren't that closely developed. Again, due to a bit the fact that we are in Brussels, working in our own parliament and in the European Parliament. And I must say, the NPR network is very, very active on that field also. So, I mean, I get a lot of secondary info also that my colleagues get from their own perm reps. And then the last one, I mean, all kinds of other groups, experts, universities, think tanks, and so on. I mean, Brussels is rich, of course, in that kind of institutions. On every street corner you find something related to the European Union. So it's more a kind of exercise to limit oneself to the ones that are very interesting and can be of help to the daily life and work of an NPR. And that's, in a quick way, an overview of the kind of networks there are within Parliament and without and outside the Parliament. I am confronted with and working with every day. Thanks.
We always think our life is difficult, but we feel now that regional parliaments, it's another level. So we give the floor now to Vanessa.
Much, Ana Paula. Thank you very much for you all to be here, especially my chair. Well, not my chair, the chair of the European Affairs Committee, but and also my team that always support me and help me. Thank you, Michel. I think we had a good point of view of the networks that national representatives have, the permanent representatives have in Brussels and the different layers. Here I am the IPEX correspondent and also the assistant to the European Affairs Committee, and the heads are usually on top of each other because they are they touch in many levels. And about a year and some months ago, Catarina came to me and said, well, I get questions from the network of the permanent representatives. Nuno, that will speak to you a little bit more about this, get several questions because he's a correspondent to the ECPRD. And you probably will get them through the IPEX network. So what do you think if we talk to each other and start a little network and give each other information and try to give more or less the same answers and have a different point of view, because with IPEX, in my parliament, we are more focused on scrutiny, not so much now, Colin, but we are really focused on scrutiny, and ECPRD has several questions, and also the permanent representatives. So we approached Nuno, that were really nice to us, and we start sharing information, sometimes on a daily basis, sometimes, well, at least once a week, we change emails between us. And the objective is to know what we are doing, what are we answering regarding questions that are related to our parliament. From the point of view of the IPEX, it was really good, as I said, because it gave me a different perspective, not only about scrutiny, and the point of view of the assistant of the Peer Affairs Committee. It was really cool because I could give information to my colleagues and tell them, oh, look what they are doing at ECPRD, or what Catarina is answering. And we actually gave information to the political level, some questionnaires that Nuno provided us and we shared with our chair. So I think the network is really working. It's small, it needs to be rethink, because we need to make a balance and see what we have done and think forward. And I think Nuno and Catarina will speak to you a little bit more about this. But in a small level, it's working and it's been rewarding, and I think my colleagues also think so. This is my small contribution, and if you have any question or ideas, or if you have small networks like this in your parliament, please share with us so we can do something better or with you. And thank you very much. That is it.
So thank you, Vanessa. It's the view of the IPEX correspondent of the Assembly of Portugal. And now we have Catarina Ribeiro.
Thank you. Is it working now? Okay. Thank you. As Vanessa referred before, we have established this internal network to share information amongst IPEX correspondent, permanent representative, and also ECPRD correspondents. Probably you were wondering, why are there 3 Portuguese in this panel, and why are they all speak about the same thing? It's because we have this small network, and I think, as Vanessa said, I think it's really paying off. It's been very helpful on a daily basis. For me, as a permanent representative, I use IPEX every day for interparliamentary cooperation, for news, for scrutiny. I'm always referring IPEX to my colleagues. If they ask me, where can I find this? You need to go to IPEX. So I'm always using this. And I also receive, and all the other permanent representatives here can confirm this, we also receive a lot of questions and a lot of information on the wide range of topics. I was an IPEX correspondent before, and I already received a lot of questions on different, not only scrutiny, but on a lot of different topics. And also I've replied to some ECPRD questionnaires, so I know that you already have a repository and a lot of questionnaires on every topic, I would say. I mean, it's impressive. From scrutiny to flags to you name it. So it was very clear that we really needed to have a network here inside the Parliament among the 3 of us, so we can share on a, well, ideally in a daily basis, but the daily part is more with ECPRD because they really have a lot of questionnaires. But we share a lot of information among us. This has 2 main reasons. One, we do not want to duplicate our work. And the other is we want to give the same answer about our parliament to all the networks. We want some consistency on this. So I think in this part we are being successful. And I'm struggling because I don't want to go into much detail on ECPRD because I want to leave some room for Nuno to say something as well. Just to share with you that we have, on this information that we have shared among us, we have shared also with the EU Affairs Committee team, but also with some members. It gives us a clear idea on what has been studied, what is on the table of other parliaments, and sometimes this overlaps what we are discussing also in our EU Affairs Committee, and it has been very helpful to have this information firsthand. the network of permanent representatives, it's always a good way to ask also for replies for the ECPRD questionnaires. Sometimes we receive some requests from our colleagues saying, can you talk to your colleagues? Can you see if we are still replying? The deadline is approaching. So I think in this part it's also good to have this internal network. And I think IPEX networks are here to stay. As Vanessa said, I think we would like to hear from you if you also have these kind of networks in your parliaments. I don't know if everyone is following COSAC or COSAC questionnaire, but we have some questions on IPEX, a whole chapter indeed. And there's one particular question on IPEX networks, if I'm not mistaken, asking if you share information with a different range of services and units, and ECPRD is there, Permanent Representatives Network as well. So I think it's a hot topic now. But I'll stop here and I'll let Nuno say something about ECPRD as well.
Thank you, Catarina. It's very good to see they're working very good together. How to take some results from that for parliamentary staff. So we'll have now Nuno Marie with the ECPRD.
Thank you. Is this on?
Yes.
Is it? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nuno. I'm the ECPRD correspondent for the Portuguese Parliament. I'm also the head of a division that is what you could call a research department. So the ECPRD is within the research department. For those of you who aren't very familiar with ECPRD, it's a network that was established in 1977, to answer Michel, 1977. And it was like every single network, it was created to promote and facilitate the exchange of information and practices within the parliaments. We do believe that the first and most reliable source of information available is our colleagues. So whenever we have a question or we are having some troubles finding information about a certain topic, the first thing we go to is our colleagues within our department, within our parliament, within the European Union. So this is what ECPRD are for. We also have a huge database of information available online. On the most various topics, not only European affairs, which we do have something. We have a lot of question and information about budget procedures, about ICT, about parliamentary practice, about environment, about GDPR, about decisions of the European Justice Court. Just name it, probably something has been asked before on the network. With this in mind, me, Vanessa, and Catarina thought that some of this information might be lost in time because Catarina probably gets questions from other representatives in the European Parliament about something that might have had been answered before. Same for me, I might have received a request from another chamber asking for information that Catarina already had something on it. Same for Vanessa. So we decided to create this network between the three of us. This network is just a mailing list where we share our answers, our concerns, what other chambers' concerns are at the moment. And this has been very fruitful. It's still very, very young, very embryonic, like 1 year old or something. Our fear is, since this new network we created is a mailing list, once the people within the mail list change rules, this information is lost. So we'll try to create a database and make it available for at least internally, so we can answer the same way, because we are in the research service, we probably see things in a certain way. Catarina sees in another one, and Vanessa probably in another one, because we are all working on different levels. So this is what I had to talk to you about. So if you have any questions, please answer, make them, and I'll try to answer as best as I can.
Okay, thank you, Nuno. I say, who in Parliament never used ECPRD information? Who never worked for ECPRD to answer questionnaires? All of us did it. So it's one of the most used networks of information. It's very generalist, various information we can get there. So now we have Marta Udina. Welcome you with the Democracy Support Network. So let's see.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me. It has been really good for me to hear, to learn more about the IPEX, and also to reflect how we can then improve also the Democracy Support Network. I was also encouraged because I heard it mentioned so many times, also starting from the speaker. So it was really encouraging, and I feel that I'm preaching to the choir of converted, but still maybe some of you don't know it much. And so how did we come about to this Democracy Support Network? The European Parliament has been working for quite a long time on democracy support. We celebrated 10 years in December, and but even before that we're working. And a few years ago, there were informal contacts with the national parliament representatives in Brussels, and we saw together with the Directorate for National Parliaments that there is some interest to maybe develop something. And unfortunately, it was actually launched during COVID, which is one of the challenges, then how to move from the online system and then, you know, make it something thriving. Because the initial idea, as with the ECPRD, was to share information, to exchange information, and IPEX was identified as the platform where this could be then hosted also. And so we have, since it was launched in 2020, and we had a few online meetings, and it was really just let's talk and see what everyone is doing, with a potential to then maybe move on to cooperation as well. And I have joined this unit actually just in as the Parliamentary Support and Capacity Building unit in the European Parliament, which is part of the Democracy Support Directorate, and only in May. And it was then that we started looking a little bit also what we can do now that the COVID measures are going down, and we can use a little bit this potential of the network. So So we would like to move beyond just information sharing and create a community of practice, because what we had seen when we had our first meeting in person in December, that there is so much knowledge among the colleagues who are part of this democracy support networks. Some of your parliaments have been working for such a long time in supporting other parliaments. So there is so much potential to create something with a EU mark, you know, with the national parliaments, the European Parliament. So I think I found it also quite inspiring to talk to colleagues who have maybe done democracy support for 15 years, helping other parliaments, and to think also how we can together have a greater impact, because each of the parliaments has maybe some specific expertise or could provide some support, but maybe not others. And working together, we increase impact. We reduce also the resources necessary. I mean, we share the burden. We also avoid overlaps. And maybe I can tell you an example now with in Ukraine. The Verkhovna Rada has been reaching out to all our parliaments, you know, to have support, and sometimes we don't have really an overview of who is doing what, and they also don't provide. So it's a little bit going back to that idea of donor coordination. We see among ourselves who can do what, who is best placed to do what, or has the possibility in a certain moment. And working together, then we can actually help them, because the irony is that the really strong project currently in the Rada is financed by the US aid. So we can, and their interest is actually to do EU approximation, and it shouldn't be, you know, the US, but rather our national parliaments. So if we work together, I think that we can really help and I think improve also efficiency. So I think we have also one of the, I wouldn't call it challenges, but something that we need to take into account is this really important project that the EU Commission is financing, Inter Pares, that we also work, many of the democracy support network correspondents are also part of the Inter Pares network. And I think that for us, the Inter Pares works maybe on shorter projects. You know, they have only a year and a half usually, and they involve the national parliaments. They have a lot of funds that probably all our parliaments don't. Not even the European Parliament has that much resources to do. But so I think it's very important for us, and that's what we're trying to do. We invite them to our democracy support network, is how we can work together really well to complement each other. For example, we asked them also to do a mapping of what the national parliaments, where is the expertise of the national parliaments, is something that they can do because they have the resources. It might be a little bit more difficult for us. But so I think that some of the challenges then that I see with this network is that it was launched during COVID, so now we want to see really how we build this community of practice. We have at the SecGens meeting, it was there was a point also on the Democracy Support Network updating on IPEX, and that's something also a challenge because Colin was mentioning before that a database is as good as the information that is contained in there. So that's the reliability of information, making sure that all the information is there. And I think that there is really scope to look at what information is necessary and why do we have this on IPEX. Do we want to have information on, we are doing this now. For example, the European Parliament is starting a project, in Serbia, if anyone is interested to know about it. But then we also have, there is the other part, which is creating kind of a memory, a historical database, and then the information we provide there so that we know that we have done something. For example, my own unit, we had project with IT. We had a study visit from IT from Albania just in June, and our colleagues from the IT services in the European Parliament at a certain point told us, but this is the 4th time we're giving the same presentations. And we're like, okay, so this is the kind of thing that we want to do really the democracy support and some development. And that's where I think also developing together methodology and how we support parliaments, I think it's good, it's something. So I think that, and maybe one challenge is that the IPEX correspondents are mostly not DSN correspondents. So it's also, I think we need to work together to see how we really facilitate this updating on information, making sure that it's relevant and easy, user-friendly for all of us. So to respect the decision of our Secretaries General to make use of this network, I think what we were discussing, and I'm speaking under the control of Colin, Claudia, also Paula, is that we would have maybe a steering group of those colleagues from the DSN network and the IPEX correspondents who would be interested to look again at this platform, see how we can improve, because my impression is that it's a little bit EP-centric, because also geographically, it's mostly the countries that we work with, and I think having, of course, candidate countries, EU candidate countries, those are probably kind of a priority for many of our parliaments to work with them and to support them. So I think that makes sense, but we can maybe see how we open up to other countries or regions that work with. I think also the themes reflect a lot how the European Parliament is organized. So I think that there we could really discuss and see if we could change them. And having burden sharing steering committee, I think it's good to not have only the European Parliament, but to maybe have a little board or steering group or somehow so that we can launch. So that is my idea that I would launch here, and I think that we could the parliaments that are interested could get in touch with us, and otherwise we'll reach out to some of you and find some victims. And yeah, so I think that I think that if we manage to then look how to optimize this to make sure that it's useful for everyone, I think that then we would be able to also have all the information and see and create really this community of practice that we'd like to see. So thank you.
Very, very interesting. Thank you, Marta. It's very nice to see that some good ideas were born in COVID time. COVID time gave, there were some ideas here when we were at home. And it's very good to know. I think Vanessa had something to say about our collaboration to this network.
We just wanted to say that we've uploaded our first 3 documents into the network. We would like to thank the cooperation with our colleagues of the international relations. They were important because they filled it out and really studied and told us what to put there. And also Christina was doing something really interesting regarding inter pares. I don't know if she would like to share. But I think it's well uploaded, Colin. Okay, so we would just like to tell you this.
Thank you. Thank you. So we give the floor now to the audience, to all the questions you have. You have had here some presentations of networks. So we give the floor to you, to your questions, and hope you can get here all your answers. Christina.
So, thank you, Vanessa, and thank you, colleagues. Regarding networks, I have one experience as a former national representative, and what can I say, I have the same experience as Catarina and Vanessa and Nuno, which was we were sending out some question to my other colleagues, and I had someone knocking at my door saying, well, back home, someone is telling me that the ECPRD correspondent has asked exactly the same. So it is very important that we don't duplicate work. Otherwise, when we want information from our colleagues, they won't give us the information because when it is too much, people won't hear you. Regarding Marta and network about cooperation, we did, Vanessa mentioned our colleagues from the international relations, but in fact we do cooperation as, I would say, as a DNA of any Portuguese server here at the Parliament. So just this week, a colleague of ours has arrived from Cabo Verde. We did a big project with inter pares, and I think we were, well, not together because we were online, but in the meeting in Stockholm. And so it is very important to know what experience we have to share, what we have done. For example, we have drafted a manual for how should the committees function in terms of regulation so that they can be less dependent on political floatings, and so that they have rules of procedure. And that is something, for example, that we could share and that we could see, well, what have we done well, what could we improve, and maybe if we could use that area of IPEX to share this kind of information also with the European Parliament, although they, as far as I understood, the interest is more to the session countries, but even so, some parliaments have this, and we have this experience to share. We have done it through IPEX and with our colleagues from international relations. And well, actually that's what I have to share. Thank you, Paula, for giving me the floor.
Hello, thank you.
It's Gonçalo from the Committee of European Affairs.
It's just a comment. Thank you for panelists for your comments. Regarding this triangle from the different source of information, the ECRPD, the permanent representatives in Brussels, the IPEX, this is all a flux of information. It's, for me as user, it's very important. And what Vanessa was saying, how we could use and make this old information efficiency enough for us to use it. I use it a lot in my work as an official of the European Affairs Committee. And I think it's very important to share all these types of nets, all the information we can gather. For me, it's very important. So the way we are doing here in Assembleia da República, I think is a good example maybe for other parliaments, how to select information and how to deal the information. So, because sometimes when you receive a lot of information, it's difficult to how you will deal with it. So I think I would like to enhance that experience here. And also this democracy support network. For sure, it's a good thing. I think it's a good way the IPEX should be involved. And as Cristina said, Portugal has a lot of work, a lot of years doing with other countries. So it's good to share our experience. I think that this is the main purpose of this kind of conference, to share our experience. So let's start sharing more. That's my comment around this. Thank you.
Very good idea. Very good idea to end this conference. I think we are on the final hour. It's very good to have you all here, and I thank you. And we'll end here. Okay.
Dear colleagues, can we maybe come to the final session? We have the pleasure of having with us here this afternoon the chair of the European Affairs Committee that many of you know, at least virtually, from our presidency. He was kind enough to come today, even though it's a difficult day, because it's usually the day where members of parliament have their political work in their constituencies. But he felt that it was important to be here, and we thank him for that. But he has a tight agenda, so he needs to leave sharp at 4:30. And we are also keen on having the guided tour, etc. So without further ado, I will start the session. We have our chair, as mentioned, Mr. Luís Capolas Santos, chair of the European Affairs Committee, who will give us his perspective as a keynote speaker on IPEX, not only as a user, but also as a beneficiary, as member of parliament. Then we have also Luka Kaučić, the current still presidency in office of the IPEX, as we were discussing informally a while ago, a third generation of IPEX user, and a very keen one. And also Milan Petric, the future presidency, who will probably give us an overview on the plans of the Czech presidency for the future. So without further ado, Mr. Chair, the floor is yours, please.
Dear IPEX users, it's a pleasure to me to be here today with you. First of all, I would like to thank you for your presence here today in the Portuguese Parliament, in this room, the Senate. Today you are true senators, and congratulate you for the fruitful discussions held during this work day. I believe it was already mentioned that the Assembleia da República has been working with IPEX since its beginning, with our staff representing the Parliament at the board level, but also with the core work developed by the national correspondents. This is why I feel it was very important to organize this conference for IPEX users, to discuss the evolution of the platform, its challenges, networks, and ultimately its future. Today you had the opportunity to hear the experience of several IPEX users with the platform from its creation to the latest version. It is safe to say that IPEX is the most comprehensive platform in the field of interparliamentary cooperation, compiling on a single website all the information related to the scrutiny of the European initiatives, the interparliamentary meetings and conference, and work done by national parliament affairs. To all these, it was added with the IPEX version 3, the information on the activities undertaken within the democracy network. With the introduction of the new content on the platform, together with this new network, the idea that IPEX is not limited to board members and correspondents present in a wide range and requires as the network of permanent representatives in Brussels is network. All the work by the different working groups contribute to transform IPEX into one-stop shop. And work is primarily its others. But who are the others of IPEX? Who use the platform in their daily work? They are also the members of the parliaments, the political stakeholders, everyone who takes interest in the parliamentary component of the European Union. In the Portuguese Parliament, IPEX is present in the work developed by the European Affairs Committee, of course, mainly in what concerns the scrutiny of subsidiarity. As our scrutiny process involves permanent cooperation with the various parliamentary committees, these are also considered as users of this platform. Therefore, a presentation was recently conducted the Conference of Committee Chairs of the Assembleia da República, which is chaired by our speaker on the IPEX tools and its importance in our daily work. I like to recall that during the parliamentary dimension of the Portuguese presidency of the Council, all the information from the meetings and conferences we organized was available on IPEX in the respective tabs, acting as a repository of information during the presidency, but also for the future as a considerable record of interparliamentary knowledge. The same happened with the Conference on the Future of Europe. In Portugal, we have organized several events in different regions to discuss at a national level and with our citizens the topics of the agenda of the conference. These events were organized by the Parliament in cooperation with other institutional partners, and two of them that we were organized by the Portuguese Parliament has been announced on IPEX beforehand. After the events, a summary was also made available on IPEX. More recently, and still in the framework of the Conference on the Future of Europe, we have discussed the Portuguese Parliament conclusions of the Conference on the Future of Europe that require treaty changes. A summary is also available on IPEX. The discussion held here today means nothing more than another step in the continuous growth and development of IPEX, based on the perception of its users. Some clues for its future were left on the table. It is now time to continue to push forward. Thank you for coming to Portugal. Share with us your experience and your knowledge. I wish you a good return home, and please come back soon. Thank you very much.
Obrigado. Many thanks. It's going to be difficult for Luca after this intervention, but no pressure. Luca will give us an overview of what this past year has been from the Slovenian presidency's point of view. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Bruno, and dear Chair, thank you for your hospitality. Dear colleagues, since today I'm here as a representative of the presidency and of the IPEX board, I will share my thoughts on how I see the cooperation with IPEX users from this point of view, although I'm also a user. Let me start where I finished my previous intervention on the previous panel by stressing the importance of meeting and communicating regularly with IPEX correspondents and also all other IPEX users. By having regular exchange of views, we are able to identify your expectations, your needs, your challenges, and future objectives. And when we identify these needs and expectations, we are able to address them in our working program and in our activities. By saying this, I'm very glad that during the Slovenian presidency, we were able to organize IPEX correspondence meeting and also users conference after some years of remote or no meetings. So at this point, I would like to really thank our Portuguese colleagues who took the initiative and organized this great meeting. During our mandate, the users were at the core of the interest of the working program and of the working groups. Follow up to the baseline study and questionnaire are designed specifically for this purpose, so to identify your needs and expectations. And I'm sure that the results of the questionnaire that you filled out today will be of great help also to the upcoming presidency and our future work. Also, working group on training was very active, providing trainings and providing training materials that are now more accessible and visible for all the new IPEX users. Of course, another area of activities during our presidency was promotion and reaching out to new users. Working group on promotion and social media was behind the users analysis, and it will give us the precious information. How do you use IPEX and for what purposes? What are your experiences with it, and how satisfied are you with IPEX? And all this gives us the foundation to decide how to move forward and how to improve the use of IPEX in terms of quality and quantity. Apart from that, we also should be the ones promoting IPEX. So I say that we should become the first influencers in our own parliaments and in our own institutions. And lastly, let me point out that what we noticed during our presidency is that we should never forget about the technical aspect of IPEX, because if IPEX has to be fully operational, reliable, user-friendly, and that is when the users will really use it. And at this point, I want to stress the importance of working closely with the European Parliament and their IT department. So to conclude, I hope we will be able to meet again soon and on a regular basis, and this kind of meetings are very valuable for us, and I wish all the best to our Czech colleagues with their organization of a correspondence meeting and their presidency. Thank you.
I need it actually. Thank you, Luca. It was very useful, and on a personal note, you inherit this IPEX chairmanship halfway through it, and you excelled in doing it, so congratulations for that. Milan, now it's your turn. The plans for the Czech presidency. We are looking forward. The bar is high, as you might have heard. So please let us know what are the plans for the Czech presidency coming soon.
Perfect. Thank you, Bruno. Dear chairs, dear colleagues, dear IPEX user. Before I say a few words about the upcoming Czech chairmanship, I would like to thank our Portuguese colleague for organizing this event. And I would like to also thanks to Slovenian chairmanships, namely Luca and Neja, because they done excellent work. They have quite a challenging task to be dealt with, and they done it perfectly. For example, the revision of the IPEX guidelines. So thank you again for this work. Regarding our chairmanships, we will try to continue in the work of the previous chairmanships and focus on the emphasizing of the role of the IPEX as a reliable and important tool for the information exchange between the parliaments. Since I had experienced all three versions of the IPEX, I believe I can say that the IPEX v3 is a qualitative leap for the platform, for its operability and usefulness. So our chairmanship will try to make sure that this platform works smoothly without any flaws. Since this year is the last year of the IPEX working program, our main task will be the new cycle of this program and also the evaluation of this current program. So we will closely cooperate with the upcoming chairmanship, Spain and Hungary, and hopefully we will be able to find an agreement about the new cycle for 2024 till 2026. Regarding the users, I believe that users who are satisfied with IPEX and the information it provides is the core objectives of the IPEX. Our chairmanship will try to continue in raising awareness of the IPEX as a tool for interparliamentary cooperation. We will try to pay attention to users' needs and expectations related to subsidiarity control, parliamentary scrutiny, or in general, the development of IPEX in the future. I would like to thank you all for today's contributions and for your answers in the questionnaire. I believe that this will help us better understand your needs and expectations, maybe identify the tools and areas of the IPEX which should be developed more or should be more promoted. I also believe that the results of the questionnaire will be great input for the next cycle of the working program of IPEX. I'm also glad that the IPEX is open to another interparliamentary activities, cooperations, such as democracy support networks. I believe that this type of cooperation opens the platform to new users. So I believe that the parliaments will actively share the information about this type of activities via IPEX, and hopefully there will be more cooperation in the future of such type. Finally, I would like to just briefly inform you about the upcoming events during the Czech chairmanships of the IPEX. We will take over the chairmanship after the EU Speaker Conference, which will take place at the end of April in Prague. First event of our chairmanship will be the IPEX board meeting in the beginning of June. Then we are planning another 2 meetings of IPEX board, and also we would like to welcome all national correspondents at the correspondents meeting at the end of October, and hopefully the correspondents will be accompanied by the new colleagues from the new candidate countries such as Ukraine, Moldova, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. And finally, I hope I will not reveal any secret, but during the Secretary General meeting at the beginning of February, the Italian colleagues expressed their willingness to organize the next IPEX Users Conference. So hopefully we will meet again soon in Rome. I don't know if next year, but hopefully soon. Well, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Milan. We're all looking forward. So now we still have a few minutes for some reactions from the audience. If you want to say something, or forever be silent, or until the next users conference. Vanessa, yes?
I need to say something. Thank you once again to the chair of the European Affairs Committee. It has been a pleasure to work with you through these years. And thank you so much for being here today. We know, I don't know if you know that at Mondays the MPs usually don't come to the Parliament because they don't have work here. They have the work outside the Parliament. So thank you very much. It was really important to me personally, and also to Catarina, I'm sure, and to Bruno, and to all the colleagues here today. Thank you, Luca, for everything. And thank you, Bruno, and thanks to you too. And now we are going to take a family photo.
Let me just 1 second before
and
that.
Bruno wants to say something.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone else, maybe Colin, you want to say something, or anyone else from the audience before we wrap it up?
Thank you so much for this opportunity to just say a couple of closing remarks. I would like to thank you again, Mr. Chairman, for being here today. And indeed, as our colleagues already mentioned, it is quite an honor and a pleasure to meet and hear you again, sharing the dream of IPEX, how we are looking into the future. I hope the work of everyone here gets some extra reward by hearing such appreciative words coming from your side. Closing the Slovenian presidency, it goes a long way back in the work they managed to finish in a very short time. Thank you again for everything. Milan and the Czech Parliament, best of luck. We've worked quite a while now on IPEX, so it's for sure on good hands. And last but not least, the Portuguese Parliament, the colleagues who had invested so much time, so much energy for this wonderful event that brought us here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Colin. Catarina, please.
Just briefly to thank everyone for being here. Thank you to our moderators and colleagues that accept our challenge to be here with us as speakers. Thank you for coming to Lisbon, and I hope to see you here soon again. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no further comments from the audience, we are now coming to the end of our conference. In my humble view, it was a very, very fruitful event, I have to say, beyond my personal expectations. I think it was very, very rich and substantial, and as Ilse mentioned in the morning, we had a good atmosphere, and I think the team-building cultural activity yesterday contributed to that, but everybody was invested in the conference, and that's something that is valuable. Allow me another personal note. We would not have been here today if it wasn't for Catarina and Vanessa. They were the brains behind all of this. They were the ones organizing it in a very short notice, so please join me in an applause for the two of them, because it is owed to them. Just to wrap it up, I think we had an overview of the evolution of IPEX in the morning, and I think we can conclude that perseverance to combat frustration actually paid off. This is why we are here today and had such rich debates. We also realized, based on the feedback from users, that IPEX is currently impacting a lot more people and in many different ways than we thought, dinosaurs like me in 2006, that would be the case. Then we had an overview, and thanks to Colin for that, for what the V3 is, third version. I always learn something every time I listen to you, so I think that's very rewarding. And I think there's a lot of potential still untapped in IPEX. We could also see the dynamics of the working groups of IPEX, which is, as someone mentioned, Catarina, I think so, it's a little bit of behind-the-scenes work that consumes a lot of lunch hours in virtual meetings to shape this. So I would also like to emphasize that, and thanks for those who actually presented the status play of the working groups here. And this to say that users are always on our minds, not only during these conferences, but throughout the year, during these meetings of the working groups, etc. So the needs of the users are always on our minds. Finally, we had this lively exchange on the networks, and I think we could actually see the beauty of this ecosystem in practice, because if you look at everything that was presented here by Marta, by our colleagues from the Portuguese Parliament, by Michel, it's users who actually give shape to this complementarity and synergy of what IPEX is. So thank you for that, but it works in two ways. It's a two-way street. It's up to us, IPEX board members, etc., to match the needs of the users, but it's also up to the users to take part in the development of IPEX. So having said that, if anyone in the future wants to reply to the question of this session, who are the IPEX users, I think we could share the list of participants of this conference, because it's a good sample of what the IPEX users, or who the IPEX users are. Having said that, I now give the floor to Federica for an announcement on the Italian side. Please, Federica.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bruno, and thank every one of you. The Portuguese Assembleia and the Portuguese colleagues have been great, simply great. This day has been interesting, rich, fruitful, full of meanings, connections, really, really productive. A very beautiful day. We're very much honored of the presence of Mr. Chairman, of course. Thank you for being here with us. We, the Italian Chamber of Deputies, will be very happy to host the next Users Conference, of course, together with the Italian Senate. It will take place at the Italian Chamber of Deputies. We're looking forward to it. We wait for you in Rome Ci vediamo a Roma.
Grazie. Grazie. Very good. So, thank you once again for being with us. Thank you, everyone. We now have a family photo so that you can share on Instagram and on IPEX, on Twitter, etc. afterwards. Hashtag IPEX, not IPEXEU. The family photo will take place on the main stairway outside, so if you can please come with us and line up, we'll do it immediately. Thank you very much.